It started with a message, a sharp, emotionless voicemail that crackled through my phone's speaker like an ice cube clinking in a glass. "Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer." My father's voice declared, each word clipped and cold. The kind of tone he used when he wanted you to feel small to remind you of your place in the family hierarchy. I didn't call back, didn't argue. I just typed a short 3-word response, understood goodbye. Then with a calmness that surprised even me, I pulled my laptop closer, opened my financial documents, and removed my name from the $320,000 mortgage on their precious, sprawling home. The house I had poured thousands into over the years. The house where my childhood memories were steeped like bitter tea. 30 minutes later, my name was gone from the papers. 2 days later, my phone vibrated violently on the counter. 67 missed calls. Dad, Mom, even my younger brother, Ethan. There was a panicked voicemail from their lawyer, the one who had probably advised them on how to corner me financially. Now he was the one begging for answers. "Mason, this is a misunderstanding. Please call your parents. They're very upset." I almost laughed. Upset that was rich. I scrolled through the missed notifications, my fingers gliding past Ethan's frantic messages. "Bro, what did you do? Dad's losing it. You can't just cut off family." Family, funny word. They loved to throw it around when they needed something, like when Ethan crashed his car and I footed the bill to keep his insurance from skyrocketing. Or when Mom's credit card debt got out of hand and I stepped in to cover the payments. Yet the one time I needed a little support, a little acknowledgement, I was met with cold stares and half-hearted shrugs. It had all started a few weeks ago. We were sitting around the dinner table, the air thick with the smell of overcooked roast and passive aggression. It was a rare family dinner, the kind I had once looked forward to before I realized I was just the backup wallet, the emotional punching bag, the one they called when something needed fixing. "So your brother's coming home for Christmas," my mom had said, her eyes flicking up from her phone for the first time that night. "Oh, really?" I replied, trying to muster some enthusiasm. "Are we all going to be together this year?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to my father. He cleared his throat, cutting into his steak with the precision of a surgeon. "Actually, it'll just be the 3 of us. Ethan's bringing his girlfriend, and well, it's a small cabin. Not a lot of space." I felt my fork clatter against my plate. A cabin. "Yeah," Ethan chimed in, his mouth full of potatoes. "We're doing a little family getaway, just close family." The word stung, but I swallowed my pride and forced a tight-lipped smile. Got it, enjoy. They didn't even notice the strain in my voice. Mom just continued scrolling, and Dad went back to his steak. The conversation as lifeless as the overcooked roast in front of us. That night, as I drove back to my cramped apartment, their words echoed in my mind. Just close family. I had paid their mortgage, covered utilities, even chipped in for Ethan's car insurance, and yet I was the outsider, the expendable one, the afterthought. A week later, as I mindlessly scrolled through social media, a picture flashed on my screen. My parents, Ethan and his girlfriend, all smiles in front of a massive, snow-covered cabin. The caption read, "Family trip to Aspen. Our family together at last." My jaw tightened. I stared at the photo, my mind replaying the countless times I had bailed them out, the sacrifices I had made to keep their lives comfortable, and this was the thanks I got. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Dad. "Hey, can you send us another $300? We're running low on cash." Internet's spotty, so Venmo is probably best. I stared at the message, then back at the picture. The laughter, the warmth, the closeness, all of it built on the foundation of my sacrifices. My fingers moved on their own. "Sorry, can't help. Enjoy your family trip." 5 minutes later, Ethan's text appeared. "Dude, seriously, what's your problem?" My problem. My problem was that I had let myself be used over and over without ever drawing a line. They had taken my kindness, my support, and twisted it into entitlement. And now they expected me to just keep pouring my time, my energy, my money into a family that only called me when they needed something. That's when I made the decision. No more. I would cut the cord, remove myself from their finances, let them stand on their own feet for once. 2 days later, the calls started. And as I watched my phone buzz and rattle on the counter, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. For the first time, I was truly free. It took exactly 3 days for the messages to shift from panic to anger. My phone lit up relentlessly with a string of texts, each one more frantic than the last. My brother Ethan was the first to crack. "Are you serious? Mason, you just cut them off without warning. What kind of son are you?" I didn't respond. I just let the texts pile up, each one a testament to the entitlement I had let fester for too long. Then my mother chimed in. "Mason, please. Your father is devastated. You need to fix this. Family sticks together." Family. The word had started to sound like an insult. I spent years being their safety net. I was the one they called when a pipe burst in the basement, or when Ethan's car broke down at 2 a.m. I was the one who covered their bills, bailed them out, and made sure their lives ran smoothly. And now, when I finally chose to draw a line, I was the villain. By the end of the week, my voicemail was a graveyard of guilt trips and thinly veiled threats. Dad's voice, once booming and commanding, now shook with barely contained rage. "You've made a huge mistake, Mason. This is your family. You don't just walk away from us. Fix this." I poured myself a cup of coffee, leaned back on my couch, and let his words wash over me like background noise. Fix this. The irony was almost poetic. For years, I had been the fixer, the one who patched the holes in their sinking ship. But this time I had chosen to let it sink. I scrolled through the endless missed calls and unread texts, feeling a strange sense of calm. I had never felt more certain about a decision in my life. A few days later, I received a letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual letter postmarked and everything. The envelope was thick, the paper inside crisp and neatly folded. It was from their lawyer. "Mason, this is a formal request to resolve the financial situation with your parents. They are struggling to meet their mortgage obligations without your contributions. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss a resolution." I chuckled. So now it was official. They were drowning without me. I thought about calling. I thought about trying to explain to make them understand that this wasn't about money. It was about respect, about boundaries, about finally standing up for myself. But I knew it would be a wasted effort. They didn't see me as a person, just a resource. Instead, I poured myself another cup of coffee, tossed the letter in the trash, and watched as the voicemail notifications piled up like the snow outside my window. I had made my choice. Now they would have to live with it. The silence that followed felt strange. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't buzzing nonstop with demands for money or last-minute favors. It was just me, my thoughts, and the soft hum of my fridge in the background. I should have felt lonely, but instead, I felt free. It had been a week since I severed my financial ties to my parents, and the fallout was still echoing through my family. Ethan had tried calling again, his tone shifting from anger to desperation. "Bro, just call Dad. He's freaking out. You're seriously going to ruin everything over one trip." One trip. As if that Aspen vacation hadn't been a metaphor for our entire relationship. I leaned back on my couch feet, propped up on the coffee table, and let my mind wander back to the countless sacrifices I'd made, the times I had skipped dinners with friends to cover their bills, the weekends lost to last-minute emergency calls about leaking roofs and unpaid medical bills. The birthdays I had spent alone because they had forgotten to invite me to family gatherings. I had been the invisible son. Present when needed, forgotten when convenient. A few days later, I got a text from my mother. "Mason, you need to stop this. You're tearing this family apart. We raised you better than this." I snorted. They raised me. They had raised Ethan, their golden child, their pride and joy. I had raised myself, scrapping and clawing my way into a stable career while they milked me dry. I decided to respond this time, but not with the desperation they were probably expecting. You mean the family that didn't even invite me to Christmas? The same one that drained my bank account for years without a second thought. I'm just following your example. Mom. Enjoy the silence. I hit send and tossed my phone aside, feeling the weight of years of resentment slowly lifting from my shoulders. The next morning, I found myself scrolling through old photos, family vacations I had paid for, but hadn't been invited to holiday dinners where I had been pushed to the far end of the table, my voice drowned out by Ethan's stories about his latest adventure or his newest girlfriend. I remembered the time I had covered Ethan's tuition shortfall without being asked just because I knew my parents would never hold him accountable, or the time I had bought Dad a new set of tools after his old ones were stolen, only to watch him brag about the gift to his friends without mentioning my name once. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it tasted a little sweeter now that I had cut the cord. Then came the inevitable escalation. My parents weren't the type to go down quietly. I was at work when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from my parents' lawyer. Mason, this is your parents' final request. They have asked me to formally inform you that unless you reinstate your financial support, they will pursue legal action for the emotional distress and financial hardship you have caused. I had to read the message twice to believe it. Emotional distress, financial hardship. Were they seriously trying to turn their years of mooching into some sort of lawsuit? I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, but it cooled quickly into something much colder. I had prepared for this. I had the receipts, the bank statements, the emails, and the texts. Years of proof that I had been their financial lifeline. If they wanted to take this to court, I would bury them in paperwork. But I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted to see how far they would take this charade. 2 days later, I found a message from my mother in my inbox. It was a long, rambling plea full of guilt trips and veiled threats sprinkled with nostalgic memories that had long since turned sour in my mind. Mason, I remember when you were a little boy, always so eager to help, always so kind. What happened to that boy? Where did he go? We just want our family back. Please, just call us. Fix this. I let out a slow breath, feeling a strange mix of pity and resentment. They still didn't get it. They still saw me as the obedient son, the one who would always come running when they snapped their fingers. I typed a short response. That boy grew up. He learned his worth, and he's done being your doormat. I hit send, leaned back, and let the silence settle around me like a warm blanket. A week passed, and the silence became deafening. I should have been relieved, but a small, anxious part of me knew my parents weren't done. They had always been the type to push until they got what they wanted, to guilt and manipulate until you caved. I had given them everything. My time, my money, my peace of mind, and they had taken it without a second thought. One morning, as I sipped my coffee and scrolled through my emails, I found a message from an old family friend, Claire. She had always been close with my mom, the kind of woman who thrived on gossip and drama. Mason, I don't know what's going on, but your parents are telling everyone you've abandoned them, that you left them to struggle with their mortgage and cut them off without warning. They're devastated. If you need to talk, I'm here. I closed my laptop with a sigh. Of course, they had started spreading their side of the story, painting me as the ungrateful son who had turned his back on his loving family. I could almost hear my mother's voice dripping with carefully crafted sorrow as she spun her version of the truth to anyone who would listen. I decided it was time to set the record straight. I pulled up my phone and scrolled back through years of messages, bank transfers, and emails. The requests for help, the guilt trips, the endless pleas for money. I compiled them all, each digital thread. A reminder of the years I had spent being their personal ATM. Finally, I opened a fresh email to Claire. Hey Claire, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate your concern, but I think you deserve to know the full story. My parents haven't been abandoned. They've been financially dependent on me for years. I've paid their mortgage, covered their bills, and bailed them out of more emergencies than I can count. When I finally decided to step back and let them stand on their own, they responded by threatening legal action. I love my family, but I can't keep sacrificing my own peace and financial stability for people who only see me as a walking checkbook. I hope you can understand. Thanks for listening. I hit send, feeling a small sense of satisfaction as the message zipped off into the digital ether. If they wanted to play this game, I would make sure the people in their circle knew the truth. A few days later, I got a call from my Aunt Lydia. She had always been the black sheep of the family, the one who didn't fit the mold, who spoke her mind and refused to play along with my parents' carefully curated image of perfection. Mason, what's this? I hear about you cutting off your parents. They're telling everyone you've left them to lose their house. I took a deep breath. I hadn't planned on dragging anyone else into this mess, but if they were going to smear my name, I had a right to defend myself. They're not telling you the whole story. Aunt Lydia, they haven't paid their own mortgage in years. I've been covering it along with most of their bills. When I finally told them I was done being their financial crutch, they flipped. She was quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in her head. That sounds more like them, she said finally, her tone sharper now. You know, your mother always had a way of twisting things to make herself the victim. I chuckled. Yeah, that's a polite way to put it. We talked for another half hour, reminiscing about family dramas and the countless times my parents had taken advantage of my generosity. By the time we hung up, I felt a little lighter, a little less alone in this fight. A few days later, I got a text from Ethan. Hey, can we talk? This has gotten way out of hand. I hesitated. My thumb hovering over the screen, Ethan had always been my parents' golden child, the one they bragged about to their friends while I was quietly footing the bills behind the scenes. But he was still my brother, and a small part of me wanted to believe he could see reason. I typed back, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. Fine, let's talk. He called a few minutes later, his voice tight and strained. Bro, what the hell is going on? Mom's been crying nonstop and Dad's talking about selling the house. You can't just cut them off like this. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm, Ethan. They're not helpless. They're adults. They just don't want to adjust their lifestyle to fit their actual income. They've been living off my money for years, and I finally had enough. There was a long pause on the line, the kind that crackles with unspoken truths and buried resentments. I get that, but they're our parents. Family takes care of each other. I felt a bitter laugh bubble up in my throat. Funny, they didn't seem to remember that when they went on vacation without me or when they conveniently forgot to invite me to Christmas. Ethan sighed. Look, I'm not saying they're perfect, but this isn't the way to handle it. Just talk to them. Give them a chance to make things right. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. I've given them chances for years. This isn't about a single trip. Ethan, it's about respect. It's about boundaries. And if they can't respect mine, then I don't owe them anything. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost uncertain. All right, man, I hope you know what you're doing. I hung up without another word, feeling the familiar pang of regret twisting in my chest. I had hoped for a moment that Ethan might understand, might stand by my side for once, but I should have known better. I tossed my phone onto the couch and leaned back, closing my eyes. I had drawn my line in the sand and I wasn't about to back down. They could spread their sob stories, rally their flying monkeys, and threaten me all they wanted. I was done being their doormat. The next few weeks were surprisingly quiet. My phone, once a constant source of stress, now sat peacefully on my desk, free from the endless pings of desperate family members. I had expected more backlash, more attempts to guilt me into coming back, but the silence felt like a small victory. Then on a cold gray Thursday, the storm hit. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from a family group chat I had forgotten I was still part of. I clicked it, curious, and my screen flooded with messages. Mom, I can't believe you would do this to us, Mason. After everything we've done for you, Dad. We raised you better than this. This isn't how family treats each other. Ethan, bro, this is getting ridiculous. Just fix this. You're better than this. I felt my jaw clench as I read through the thread, each message dripping with self-pity and thinly veiled manipulation. They were painting me as the villain, the ungrateful son who had abandoned his poor, struggling parents. Then I saw it. A post from my mother shared publicly on her Facebook page, complete with a picture of her and my father looking solemn in their living room. The caption read, "Family should be forever." It's heartbreaking when the ones you loved the most turn their backs on you. I felt a hot wave of anger wash over me, my hands tightening around my phone. They had turned this into a public spectacle, dragging my name through the mud for sympathy points. My notifications were blowing up. Concerned messages from family friends, distant relatives asking what had happened, even a few old high school friends reaching out to see if I was okay. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This was exactly what they wanted, to push me into reacting, to drag me back into their web of control. But I had learned my lesson. I wasn't going to play their game. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up my folder of evidence. Years of messages, emails, bank transfers, and receipts. Proof of every bill I had covered, every emergency I had bailed them out of, every sacrifice I had made for a family that now called me a traitor. I typed out a new post, my fingers moving with a cold, calculated precision. For everyone reaching out, I appreciate your concern, but you deserve to know the full story. My parents have been financially dependent on me for years. I have paid their mortgage, covered their bills, and funded their lifestyle without a single word of thanks. When I finally drew a boundary, they decided to turn me into the villain. I am done being their financial lifeline. I am done being used. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I have the receipts. I attached a few choice screenshots. Text conversations where my parents had begged for money, emails where they had guilt-tripped me into covering their mortgage, even a photo of the Aspen cabin they had taken without me. Then, with a final deep breath, I hit post. The response was immediate. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Notifications pouring in faster than I could read them. Messages of support, shocked responses from old friends. Even a few cautiously supportive notes from family members who had always suspected my parents weren't as perfect as they pretended to be. Then came the frantic messages from my parents. Mom, how could you do this to us? This is a private family matter. Dad, take that down now. You have no right to air our personal business, Ethan. Dude, what the hell? You didn't have to go nuclear like this. I ignored them all, letting my phone buzz and rattle on my desk as I leaned back in my chair, a small, satisfied smile spreading across my face. For once, the truth was out. I had pulled the mask off their carefully curated image, exposed the cracks in their perfect facade, and watched as their world started to crumble. But it didn't end there. The next morning, I woke to a dozen missed calls from Ethan, each one more frantic than the last. I finally picked up the latest one, leaning against my kitchen counter as I put the phone to my ear. What I said, not bothering to hide the exhaustion in my voice. Bro, you have to take that post down. Mom's losing it. Dad's talking about cutting you out of the will. You're tearing this family apart. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Oh, really? Cutting me out of the will? The same will that doesn't even exist yet because they're still drowning in debt. I helped them cover. Give me a break, Ethan. There was a long pause on the other end, the crackle of static filling the silence. You've really lost it, man, he said finally, his voice tinged with disbelief. I don't even recognize you anymore. Maybe that's the problem. Ethan, I shot back, my voice cold and sharp. Maybe you never really knew me in the first place. I hung up, tossing my phone onto the couch and scrubbing a hand through my hair. They still didn't get it. They still thought this was a game, a family drama that would eventually blow over, leaving everything neatly restored to the way it had been. But I was done playing their games. I pulled up my bank app, scrolling through the list of automatic payments I had set up over the years. The utilities, the insurance, the countless small transactions that had slowly drained my savings. I canceled each one with a small, satisfying tap, severing the last of the financial ties that had kept me chained to my parents for far too long. I watched the balance on my account stabilize, the numbers finally starting to move in the right direction. For the first time in years, I felt a strange, unfamiliar lightness settle over me, a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in a long time. They could call me a traitor, a bad son, a heartless monster. I didn't care anymore. I was finally free. A few weeks passed and the initial chaos started to die down. My parents had gone quiet. their frantic calls and guilt-ridden messages tapering off into uncomfortable silence. I had expected them to escalate, to throw one final tantrum, but instead they seemed to retreat, licking their wounds and regrouping. I should have felt relieved, but the quiet felt like the eye of a storm. Deceptive, temporary, and unsettling, I knew them too well. They weren't the type to admit defeat, even when the truth had been dragged into the light for everyone to see. Then on a chilly Friday evening, I got a message from an unexpected source, my Aunt Lydia. "Hey Mason, I heard about the fallout with your parents. I just wanted you to know that you did the right thing. You deserve to live your life without being their personal piggy bank. Don't let them guilt you into coming back." I stared at the message for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. Lydia had always been the black sheep of the family, the one who had walked away from the endless cycles of manipulation and guilt, carving out a life for herself far from the suffocating reach of our parents. I replied with a simple thanks. "Aunt Lydia, I appreciate it." A few days later, I got a call from a blocked number. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen for a moment before I hit accept. "Mason." It was my mother's voice, small and strained, like she had aged 10 years since our last conversation. I didn't say anything, letting the silence stretch between us. "Mason, please," she continued, her voice cracking slightly. "We can't keep living like this. Your father is struggling. We're barely holding on. We need you." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar pull of guilt, the instinct to fix, to protect, to make things right. But I forced myself to stay silent, to let her words hang in the air like smoke. "We've made mistakes," she said, her tone desperate now, "but we're family. You can't just walk away from that." I felt a bitter smile tug at my lips. She still didn't get it. They hadn't been my family in a long time, not really. They had become something else, something twisted and toxic, a black hole that had consumed my time, my money, my peace of mind. "I'm sorry, Mom." I said, my voice colder than I had intended. "But I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being used." She let out a small, broken sob, and for a moment I felt a pang of something close to regret. But then I remembered the years of sacrifice, the countless sleepless nights, the empty bank accounts and broken promises. "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up my hands, trembling slightly, and set my phone down on the counter. I took a deep breath, letting the silence settle around me like a long-lost friend. The following week, I started getting texts from old family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, people who had apparently taken my parents' side in this twisted, one-sided war. "How could you do this to your family?" "Mason, they're your parents. You only get one set of those. You'll regret this. I don't understand how you can just abandon them like this." I deleted each message without a second thought, blocking numbers as I went. I had made my choice, and I wasn't about to let anyone guilt me into going back. Then one night, as I sat on my couch, a glass of whiskey in my hand, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Ethan. "Bro, I don't know what's happened to you, but this isn't the Mason. I know you've changed. I hope you can live with yourself after this." I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the warmth spread through my chest, and then I typed back a single sentence. "You never knew me." I hit send, tossed my phone onto the coffee table, and leaned back, staring at the ceiling as the room fell into silence once more. A month later, I got a letter in the mail. A thick white envelope with my parents' address scrawled across the front in my father's sharp, familiar handwriting. I hesitated for a moment, my heart thudding in my chest before I ripped it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in my father's tight, angry script. "Mason, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. Your mother cries every night, and I can barely look at myself in the mirror. You have turned your back on us, and I will never forgive you for this betrayal. But know this, you will regret this one day, when you're old and alone, when you have no one to turn to. Remember this moment. Remember the family you threw away. You are dead to us, Dad." I felt a strange, hollow ache in my chest as I read the letter, the final nail in the coffin of a relationship I had once cherished. But as I set the letter down on the counter, a sense of calm washed over me. They had finally said the quiet part out loud, the part they had always hinted at but never dared to speak. They had disowned me, cut me off, severed the last fragile threads of our connection. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. I crumpled the letter into a tight ball, tossed it into the trash, and turned back to my glass of whiskey, raising it in a silent toast to my newfound freedom. To cutting the cord, to living life on my own terms. To Peace Story 2. We're on vacation at the family gathering. Dad said we're expecting a visit from our lawyer since I had declined to co-sign a $220,000 loan for my golden child sister's store. I refrained from arguing. They woke up to frozen accounts the following morning after I just nodded and turned away. We're on vacation. Anticipate our lawyer's arrival like a scalpel. Dad's voice sliced through the room. Around the table, his icy, unwavering eye was locked on me. Forks stopped in midair. Discussions ended. Mom pretended not to see Jenna and turned her attention to her meal with a contented smile on her lips. My sister leaned back. Jenna maintained that opening a boutique would finally allow her to be independent, but I refused to co-sign a $220,000 loan for her next bright endeavor. However, I was aware of the reality. As the family's golden child, Jenna was impervious to wrongdoing. Every credit card maxed out, every company that collapsed. The problem is always someone else's. Mine forever. Dad didn't inquire. He made a demand. Michael, just sign it. Family members help one another. Not in this manner, I had stated, maintaining a steady tone. Quiet. The storm followed. Dad's face flushed. Following everything we've done for you. Done for me. It nearly made me chuckle. I reflected about the bills I paid when Jenna's last business failed and the mortgage I had paid for their home. The never-ending crises that always appeared to be my issue. I didn't list any of it, though. I simply stood there in silence as Jenna's eyes welled up with tears. It was an instantly recognizable performance. You didn't give a damn about me. You never stood by me. Then, as usual, the silent collaborator said, Mom, please, Michael, she's your sister, naturally. While I worked 2 jobs, she was the sibling who partied through college. I paid for the repairs after my sister's automobile was wrecked, while I just gave the sister took. I gave them a look. I had spent years attempting to support and please this family. Finally, I caught a glimpse of it. I wasn't considered family by them. I was a wallet, a safety net. Dad's voice rang out when he stood up during the reunion. We're on vacation. Anticipate our lawyer's arrival. It wasn't unexpected. It was only a worn-out play's last act. I didn't argue, though. I didn't stand up for myself. I simply nodded, got up and left. And when they awoke the following morning, their accounts were frozen. However, that was only the start. I believed that the accounts being frozen would serve as sufficient warning. I was mistaken. At 7:15 a.m., the first call was placed, Dad's phone number. After 10 seconds, I let it ring. One more call, then another. I made myself a cup of coffee after turning off my phone and throwing it on the kitchen counter. I had finished rushing to clean up their mess. My mom's email appeared in the subject line of my work email at 8 a.m. How were you able to? Out of morbid curiosity, I opened it. Please, Michael. There is a miscommunication here. We can resolve this, but your father is unhappy. Give us a call. Please make this right. I always did it that way. Was it not? I didn't respond, so I closed the email. They were desperate by midday. This time, it was another email from Jenna. Everything is damaged by you. You are the reason my shop is dead. I'm not even allowed to handle the money. I drank my coffee and grinned. No, Jenna. Like all the previous schemes you came up with while I was taking care of the expenses, your boutique was doomed because it was always a fantasy. However, it continued. Dad texted her at 3 p.m. I'm not sure what you did, but you'll pay the price if you don't take action right away. The family group chat turned into a war by the evening. Michael, please speak to us. Mom, Jen, he is a traitor. I've always been disliked by him. Boy, you've gone too far. Dad, it's family. Family. The meaning of that term was unknown to them. I heard a loud knock on my front door at 7 p.m. 3 firm knocks. I didn't even need to scan the crowd. I was certain it was them. They were standing there when I opened the door. Anger distorted Dad's face. Mom's eyes were already moist from crying, and Jenna looked like she had been dragged here screaming and kicking her mascara ruined. "You've overreached yourselves." Dad pushed past me into the living room and yelled. I said, "Mom," but she shook her head. "Just make this right, Michael. What should be fixed?" I lost my temper. I simply quit being used by you. Like a bullet. Jenna's words rang out across the room. Everything was damaged by you. That money was necessary to me. "No," I answered in a chilly tone. "That money was what you sought. There is a distinction. Michael, we are related." Dad slammed his fist down on my kitchen counter and yelled. "This is not how family members treat one another." I chuckled. In fact, I laughed. "Family. You sent me here to solve your issues. I'm not family now that I've said no." Jenna screamed, "Stop that drama. Your sister is me, a sister of mine who has stolen hundreds, a parent who used me as his own financial account, a mother who speaks simply to make me feel guilty. Family isn't that." Dad's face turned red, then pale. He took a step toward her. I could smell the cheap whiskey on his breath from so close. "It's your only chance. I hope you understand the consequences of your actions and unfreeze the accounts." "Or what?" I leaned closer and whispered, "Will you threaten me? You'll take more." "Dad, what's left to take my funds? My sanity?" "No, no longer." I took out my phone, flipped the screen in their direction, and launched the banking app. The emergency funds. The frozen accounts Jenna believed she would use. Everything is locked. "We can settle this legally if you think I owe you. Isn't that what you threatened?" Dad opened his mouth, closed it, and then opened it again. However, nothing was revealed. Jenna's tone faltered. "We never cared." As I mentioned. I wasn't finished when I told you I went to my desk, took out a folder from a drawer. "How much have I done for this family, you ask? First, let's talk about the mortgage." I took out a printout. "The electric bills. That was me. Internet, groceries, car payments for you, Jenna. All me." Dad's face drained of color. You're lying." "Am I?" I tossed down another stack. Printouts of transactions. Transfers, screenshots of Jenna's endless requests for a little extra because she was trying so hard. "Please, Michael," Mom whispered. "I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the one you call when your lies fall apart. I have my own life, and from now on, that's all I'm going to focus on." I walked to the door, opened it. "Get out." Dad's face twisted with anger, but he stopped himself. His fist clenching by his side, he froze. A split-second decision flashing across his eyes. Maybe he remembered that without me, his house of cards crumbled. Maybe he realized that I wasn't bluffing. "Please, Michael, we can talk." Mom tried again, but I didn't budge. "Get out." They left, slamming the door so hard the picture frame shook. I stood there listening to their voices fading down the hallway. Jenna sobs. Dad's angry muttering. Mom's helpless whispers. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel free. Not yet, but I would. Because this was just the beginning. The day of the family dinner. I wasn't sure if they would even show up, but I made sure I was ready. I didn't dress up, just jeans and a black t-shirt. But I had something else prepared. Something they wouldn't see coming. At exactly 6 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find them Dad, Mom, and Jenna standing like a united front. Dad's jaw was clenched so hard I thought his teeth would crack. "We're here to sort this out like adults," he grumbled, pushing his way inside without an invitation. Mom followed, wringing her hands, her eyes imploring without a word. Jenna rushed in last arms, crossed, eyes blazing and furious. "Sit down," I said, closing the door. They didn't argue. Dad sunk into the armchair like he owned it. Jenna and Mom took the couch. Michael, Dad started, his voice attempting to sound cool but breaking below. We are prepared to forget all this. If you simply rectify what you've done, reopen the accounts, help your sister with her store, let's be a family again. A family, I chuckled. Is that what you call this? The relentless taking, the guilt, the manipulation? Stop being dramatic, Jenna said. Everything is being ruined by you. No, Jenna, I'm simply being honest for once. Her gaze expanded. What is the truth? The reality. Every time you weep and run to your father, you conceal yourself behind the lie you tell. I sat down and took out my phone. I was expecting you to say that. So I was ready. When I tapped the screen, a recording of Jenna's voice can be heard clearly. He is only an ATM, he is irrelevant. I can always hold him accountable. I'll create that for him or he'll do it himself. Jenna's expression became white. That is, even Mom's eyes opened, yet she screamed, "That's fake! Dad, quit talking!" Switch that off. No, calm and cool, I said. Everything will be heard by you. The next audio I listened was a conversation between Dad and Jenna. Dad just put pressure on him. He constantly feels bad about you. He will sign. He must. We are related. Dad's face flushed. Where did you purchase that? Where has Jenna been, in your opinion? So self-assured, so cocky. She had no idea that I kept records. But I did. Jenna's tone faltered. Are you watching me? You're crazy. Crazy. I laughed again. Let's discuss insanity. I retrieved a pile of documents and placed them on the coffee table. Medical bills and credit card debts, repayments for your residence. All in my name, I paid for it. Mom's hand trembled as she stretched out. Please, Michael. Please, what act? As though this never occurred, act as though it's been years since you used me. I leaned in. My voice was harsh yet steady. No, we must confront the reality tonight. Dad's hands were shaking. You're not entitled. Not at all. I rose, looming over them. Dad, let me recall you. I own the house where you reside. My money covers the expenses, and my name is on the mortgage. Dad opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I made an effort to assist you. I made an effort to be a decent son. However, you made me your fallback option, your safety net, your punching bag. You're not thankful, I interrupted him before he could finish. Thank you. It's impressive that you said it. I looked across at Jenna. All of your aspirations, all of your small company concepts. My money was used to pay for them, each and every one. Jenna sprang to her feet and stood. All you want to do is destroy me. I've always been disliked by you. No, I've always come to your rescue, Jenna. However, it is no longer the case. The next file I opened. This is the documentation for the vehicle you drive, the one for which I co-signed. You know, next week it will be repossessed. What about the house? The automated payments have already been halted. You have 30 days to solve it. Mom's voice broke. Please, Michael, this is something we can resolve. You can't. Mom, because money was never the point of this. The fact that I was never your son is the issue. Your insurance policy was me, Dad. Come on forward. His eyes were filled with anger. Proceed. You can say anything you want. Nothing will change as a result. After hovering, his hand dropped, he stumbled back. Wild eyes. You believe you're quite intelligent. Do you believe that you are superior to us? No, I answered steadily and icily. I am nevertheless free. I made my way to the door. I opened it. Leave. They paused. They had nothing to say for once, nothing to ask for. They walked away. Mom is weeping. Jenna's swearing. Dad giving an injured animal's glare, but I heard him growl before the door closed. This is something you'll regret. You believe you can simply leave. You have no idea what family is. Oh, I get precisely what you mean by that. Locking the door, I said. The living room was deserted when I turned back. Their rage is still reverberating. However, something felt off. I no longer bore the burden I had for years. They believed that this was the end of it. They assumed I would return in a shambles. However, they were mistaken. Because I wasn't simply leaving, I was prepared to take my life back. I didn't hold out. I sat down on my laptop and started as soon as the door closed behind them. First, a post on social media. No tale about crying, no cries for pity, just the harsh, icy reality. Screenshots of receipts for payments, Jenna's messages requesting money, sound recordings of her phoning me an ATM. Dad also said that I owed them since I was related. This is what family looks like when you're just a safety net, I wrote as the caption. I made a cup of coffee, pressed post, and watched as the alerts started coming in. Reactions, messages, encouragement, and comments came in more quickly than I anticipated. However, they quickly responded. Mom came first. In 1 hour, her post was up. Family members shouldn't ruin one another. Michael is telling lies. He has always had our backing. Telling lies. I grinned. Press reaction helped me. These are the invoices for your home that I paid the bills I paid off for Jenna. My account was emptied of hundreds of dollars. Should I send her post the voice recordings? 10 minutes later, they vanished. I didn't stop, though. I formally removed my name off their home's mortgage by sending a letter to the bank. I disconnected the utilities that were still in my name. Let them solve it. The automobile I co-signed for Jenna came next. Within 2 days, the one she carried around town like a prize was taken back. She attempted to share an emotional story on Instagram when you are betrayed by your own relatives. But contrary to her expectations, pity did not pour in. Rather, questions began to be asked. I was not required to respond. They already knew everything from my post. I wasn't finished, though. I set up a comprehensive anonymous interview with a local podcast. I didn't need to name them, but I didn't. The narrative was obvious. A family that thought of me as a walking cash cow. One sister who pretended to be the victim parents with manipulative skills. It became a viral episode. All of a sudden, individuals started contacting each other and sharing their own tales. The reaction from my family was expected. They launched an attack. A week later, I received a cease and desist letter from a local attorney accusing me of defamation and damaging the family's image. My lawyer, an old friend, said, I laughed in a day. Please be aware that any evidence, including bank records, audio recordings, and communications, will be fully disclosed to the public as a consequence of any litigation. Proceed at your own peril. Quiet. Mom made another attempt. One more post. My own son is unrecognizable to me. How could he harm us like this? But enough had been seen. Perhaps check yourself in the mirror, her pals said. And it was only the start. I got an email from the bank a week later. The mortgage's financial criteria have not been met by your household. The foreclosure process will soon start. Jenny never even opened her store. Her Instagram disappeared. Her web store shut down. She made an effort to save her reputation, but I had already destroyed it. Dad's friends turned against him. His haughty reputation was whispered by others. The self-made guy was a complete fabrication, now exposed, and I simply watched it all come crashing down. Messages came flooding in. Support from strangers, clients reaching out, people narrating their personal betrayal stories. I felt less alone in my new flat for the first time. Tidy. Keep quiet. Mine. Every morning when I drink my coffee, I watch the sun peeking through the shutters. No demands, no shouting, no UFOs. My phone then broke. It was Jenna's message. Are you content now? Our family was ruined by you. Hopefully it was worthwhile. I typed a response while grinning. Joyful, more joyful than before. And this is only the start. I believed I had seen everything 2 weeks after the storm. Then the email arrived, Dad's frantic, meandering message. Please, Michael, your point has been made. The house is about to be lost. Your sister is disintegrating. People no longer even speak to us. Was this what you were hoping for? Put your own family in ruins? Destroy. I chuckled. They had already done it. However, I didn't respond. A notice appeared an hour later, a fresh Facebook post. Once more, Mom is becoming the victim. Family is meant to be forgiving. Despite our greatest efforts, some people just wish to cause harm to others. I rolled my eyes, took a screenshot, and returned to my coffee. I was drawn to the comments, though. Not compassion, not now. Did you not take advantage of him? Why are there so many receipts if he is lying? We were always aware that there was a problem with your family. They were being publicly ripped apart. Jenna then made an effort to defend herself. She produced an emotional video. The voice cracked and the mascara smeared. My life is being destroyed by my brother. He's telling lies. Everyone is being manipulated by him. However, she overlooked something I continued to record. Below her video, I included a snippet. Her voice was really clear. He is only an ATM. He'll cover the cost. He always does. Her video's comments section descended into hate. She was referred to be a manipulator and a liar. In a few hours, her profile disappeared, removed. But when I received a call from Dad's own father, Grandpa, it was the last straw. A guy who remained silent even when he witnessed the worst and who never chose sides. I heard the events, Michael. Come on over. Let's have a conversation. He wasted no time when I got there. He gave me an envelope, an official document. Grandpa, I've altered the trust, he stated steadily. Their home has never been entirely theirs. It's in my name. It's yours now. Stunned, I gazed at him. They made you feel as though you owed them money, deceived you, and exploited you. I've had enough of watching it. It's over now. My parents' home received a legal notice a week later. They were given 30 days to leave. Mom made a panicked call. You can't do this, Michael. We have nowhere to go. Dad picked up the phone. You've evolved. I no longer recognize you. Is this your family? No, I answered calmly. Family members are meant to help one another. However, all you saw in me was a safety net. That's over now. They made every effort. Texts and calls. Even arriving at my house, I didn't respond. They packed things and departed. But I didn't even see it. I stood in front of their deserted home a month later. No laughs, no lights, nothing but quiet. Now my house is clean, painted, and renovated. A new beginning. It buzzed on my phone. Jenna sent me another message, but this time it was only 2 words. I apologize for my lack of response. I didn't even crack it open. I left the ashes of that existence behind and went away. My cheeks warm in the sunlight. I was free for the first time to story. 3. I received a message from my deceased grandfather on my birthday. Cheers to your birthday. I'm still here. Shaking. He was in a nursing home when I followed the number. Your inheritance was taken by them. Your home, he muttered. I uploaded his pictures to the family group chat that evening. I then shut off their utilities, frozen their accounts, and revoked their allowance, and it was only the start. Being away from you is preferable. Everyone will have less stress. Sharp as broken glass, my father said. From the kitchen came my mother's laughing. Oh, please stop being so cruel. However, perhaps you ought to celebrate your birthday in a different location. We already have too much on our plate. The remnants of their supper were on the dining table, and I stood there looking at it with my phone in hand. Half-eaten, empty wine glasses, cake crumbs strewn about like thoughtless thoughts. Not even a seat had been reserved for me. By the way, happy birthday. Without taking her eyes from her phone, my sister Sarah made a joke. There was a false sweetness in her voice. You know, I thought you'd want some privacy, so I decided not to share a picture of us from the past. I didn't even inquire as to why I wasn't invited to the celebration. I was aware of the solution. The one who always provided yet was never enough was me, the outsider. The person who took on 2 jobs in order to pay off debt. The one whose mom needed help with her groceries so she missed weekends with pals. Sarah needed anything, or Dad needed his car fixed. I wasn't upset. I was numb, something colder. Much like the wind that pounded at the windows in January. Yes, I succeeded in putting my phone in my pocket. Have a good evening. The door was not slammed by me. I didn't yell, I just left. Went to my car, got behind the wheel, and gazed at the windshield while attempting to recall just one instance in which they had praised me, expressed pride in me, or thought of me as more than just a handy person. It was a haze of a drive back to my place. Like melting glass, the city lights extend. I switched off when I arrived home. Sitting in the dark was my phone. I didn't care. I told myself because their remarks were really fresh words carved from old habits. However, I switched the phone back on at midnight. The screen was illuminated with a single message, unknown figure. Cheers to your birthday. I'm still here. I gazed at it. It was most likely a nasty joke or prank from a bored companion who had figured out the ideal technique to twist the knife. I was on the verge of deleting it when I noticed the contact name Grandfather. They told me that Grandpa had been deceased for around 3 years. Cold perspiration sprang on my forehead as my heart raced. I verified that the area code for the number matched the place where he had previously resided, but it didn't make sense. He had left. Buried, I had read the death notice. The pictures from the little funeral. Just Sarah, Mom and Dad. I was not invited. Too preoccupied with job. As I typed, my fingers began to shake. Me, who is this? There were 3 dots. Then there was another message. Unknown figure. They misled you, your inheritance, your home. They accepted it. I need your assistance. I had trouble falling asleep. In the dark, I sat. My phone's frigid light, the room's sole source of illumination. The message from Grandpa looked back at me. A wound that glows, unknown figure. They misled you, your home, your gift. They accepted it. I need your assistance. Even though I didn't want to accept it, I couldn't help but feel a chill go up my spine. I tracked down the number A nursing facility, made the call, 2 towns away. Although the trip took less than an hour, it seemed to take forever. The structure was worn out and drab. It's the type of location where time passes. A nurse looked up as I entered. When she noticed my face, her grin faded. I'm here to observe. He looks like my granddad to me. My voice faltered. Her face softened. Do you mean Hargrove? Mr. 214th room. When I arrived to the door, I nearly fled. My labored breathing ceased. What if something went wrong? What if I spotted a stranger as I entered? However, I forced it open. By the window stood an elderly guy with silver hair. Golden lights and a weary face may be seen in this sunlight artwork. His gaze changed, and he gave me a faint, shaky smile as they met. I anticipated your arrival. There was a glimmer of vitality in his voice, but it was like parched leaves. Grandfather? He gave a nod. I wanted to give him a hug, but I was immobile. My legs felt like stone. I whispered that you should be dead. They wanted you to believe that. He pointed to the bed next to him, and I fell down on it. Boy, they took it all. The money, the house. They claimed that I refused to sign it for them, which is why I died. Thus, they falsified it. I was unable to hear my own thoughts because my heart was beating so loudly. However, they had pictures from a funeral. Everything is phony. A casket that was empty was buried. Told you it was just for family, did they not? Indeed, I felt sick and the inheritance that was supposed to be for you and only you. But they needed the money. They always do. His hand shook as he stretched for mine. I attempted to resist them, but they locked me here. Said I was losing my mind. They confiscated my phone, but I pleaded the nurse. She let me use hers. That was all it required? That one whisper of treachery and the numbness shifted to something else. Something burning. I stood up. I won't allow them. Get away with this, Grandpa's hold became unexpectedly firm. Take caution to keep what they have stolen. They will stop at nothing. Anything. The winter air was cutting my face as I left the nursing home, but I didn't feel anything. I had my phone in my hand and it was dialing. After 2 rings, Dad answered the phone. Well, you've finally realized that you have relatives. He spoke in a sarcastic tone. I went to see Grandpa just now, quiet. The type of glass cracking kind. Dad, I know everything. I am aware of what you did. You've never shown gratitude. Keep it. My voice sounded frigid to me. I had never heard of this before. You informed me of his death. You took his money and his house. You left him to fester in a nursing facility after pretending he had died. Watch what you say, he said. You have no knowledge. I am enough knowledgeable. I had the pictures and the words. I'm heading to the police station. The curse was hushed. Then there was another voice. Mom, please, my love, avoid doing this. You're not understanding. For the family, we took this action. The household, I chuckled, or for you because your conception of family is a falsehood. I ended the call. They immediately phoned me back, but I didn't answer. I immediately went home and started looking through bank statements, text messages, and pictures. I was aware of the whereabouts of my parents' old files. They believed that I had never touched them. However, I discovered more than simply proof of the house. I discovered something worse, moves. Over the previous 3 years, thousands of dollars were embezzled from Grandpa's account into accounts using the identities of my sister and mother. I owned the money, I owned the house. They stole everything, and Grandpa trusted them. A Facebook post buzzed on my phone as a notice. Families are based on forgiveness and trust. Mom, there are those who simply cannot let go of their resentment. At Linda, there was a flood of remarks from aunts, uncles, and even relatives. Sweetheart, don't worry. Some children just become self-centered. Uncle Mike, being unappreciative is an understatement. Then Sarah. He has always been the mischievous kid, making drama all the time. The tale was being fabricated by them. I was being portrayed as the bad guy. Once more, my phone buzzed. Sarah texted Sarah. Adult up, Graham was perplexed. Half of what he says, he can't even recall. Do you want the house? All right. You're not stealing from me, though. All you can think about is yourself. I didn't toss my phone, even though I wanted to. Rather, I began capturing screenshots, copying every document I came across, and storing everything. I organized them into a tidy folder on my laptop, gave it the name Truth, and made 3 backup copies. They believed they could steer the story. As usual, they assumed that I would give in. However, they were unaware that I had finished being the submissive son. There was silence in the cafe. Around me, the faint hum of voices serves as a background noise. I picked a table distant from the windows in the corner. It was flawless. The entryway is clearly visible, not a place to hide. I sat with the USB disk plugged in and my laptop open. A folder with the name Truth inside. Everything glowed on the screen. The last nail in their coffin was the faked signatures. The bank transfers, the screenshots, and the video of Grandpa in the assisted living facility. My phone exploded. The message from Mom. Here we are. Don't cause a scene. Please, I didn't respond. Soon enough, they would come to regret those words. I saw them when the door opened. Dad stiff and irate, Mom white-faced and anxious, Sarah grinning but with that poisonous fake sweetness. They approached and sat across from me without saying anything. I gave them a look and remained silent. Mom broke the quiet. Could we just have a conversation about this, honey? We are related. Family, as you instructed. I let the word linger. Grandpa had passed away. Like you locked him in a nursing home after stealing his house. Dad's expression contorted. You dare not. I clicked a file on my laptop while leaning back, Grandpa's video. His words were clear, but his voice was weak. They took it. Everything, the money, the house. They misled you. Mom quickly put her palm to her lips. Deadline. Go ahead. His voice was a whisper of rage. Do you think we'll be frightened by this small show? Your grandfather is senile. He is unsure of his own words. Really? I clicked another file, a scanned document of the inheritance. Grandpa's actual signature next to the fabricated one. Quiet. Then Sarah laughed a shrill, bitter sound. You've always been so theatrical. You think this makes you some hero. You constantly act so naive. Reality. I grinned. Now let's discuss reality. I selected the following file, which had screenshots of her posts on social media, spa treatments, fashionable clothing, and lavish holidays. The money moves from Grandpa's account to hers immediately next to them. She stopped smiling. You were not entitled. Not at all, I interrupted her, as if you had no right to take the fortune that was intended for me. No right to act as though Grandpa had passed away. Mom's voice broke. Please, my love. All we wanted to do was keep you safe. You've always had such a sensitive nature. Defend me. I bent over. I spoke in my own voice. You abandoned him to die by himself. You told a falsehood. You took something. You want me to simply pretend it's all right and smile now. Dad bent over. Anger pierced his voice. Enough. This is a family-run company, and you will regret it if you don't keep your mouth shut now. Why didn't I flinch? Once more, you lie about me. Tell the family I'm a failure, perhaps, same as when you claimed that I had stolen from you. Or that I didn't have gratitude. His face was a mask of anger as he leaned forward. You've always been challenging, always rushing to other people, blaming us all the time. Grandpa didn't want you around. Which makes sense. I grinned. He's here, so that's amusing. The door behind him opened and a silent person cautiously entered, leaning toward Grandpa with his cane. Mom became pale. Dad's jaw dropped. In fact, Sarah squeaked. Hi, son. Grandpa spoke steadily but weakly. Are you surprised to see me? You are you. Dad looked like a caged animal as he stammered. I was going crazy, you said. Grandpa muttered, his voice getting louder as he spoke. I wasn't safe at home, you claimed. You assured me that the house would be taken care of, that the family would benefit from the money. However, you only looked for yourselves. Mom's hands shook. Dad, please, we took care of things for you. You were no longer able to live alone. We made an effort. I received a message from my deceased grandfather on my birthday. Cheers to your birthday. I'm still here. Shaking. He was in a nursing home when I followed the number. Your inheritance was taken by them. Your home, he muttered. I uploaded his pictures to the family group chat that evening. I then shut off their utilities, frozen their accounts, and revoked their allowance, and it was only the start. Being away from you is preferable. Everyone will have less stress. The sharpness in my father's voice has shattered. Glass. From the kitchen came my mother's laughing. Oh, please stop being so cruel. However, perhaps you ought to celebrate your birthday in a different location. We already have too much on our plate. The remnants of their supper were on the dining table, and I stood there looking at it with my phone in hand. Half-eaten empty wine glasses, cake crumbs strewn about like thoughtless thoughts. Not even a seat had been reserved for me. Cheers to your birthday. Not glancing up from her phone, my sister Sarah made a joke. There was a false sweetness in her voice. You know, I thought you'd want some privacy, so I decided not to share a picture of us from the past. I didn't even inquire as to why I wasn't invited to the celebration. I was aware of the solution. The one who always provided yet was never enough was me, the outsider. The person who took on 2 jobs in order to pay off debt. The one whose mom needed help with her groceries, so she missed weekends with pals. Sarah needed anything, or Dad needed his car fixed. I wasn't upset. I was numb. Something colder. Much like the wind that pounded at the windows in January. Yes, putting my phone in my pocket, I managed. Have a good evening. The door was not slammed by me. I didn't yell. I just left, went to my car, got behind the wheel, and gazed at the windshield, while attempting to recall just one instance in which they had praised me and shown me their pride when I had been anything but practical, with the city lights extending like melted glass. The trip back to my place was a blur. I switched off when I arrived home. Sitting in the dark was my phone. They were only chopping new words out of old habits, but I persuaded myself it didn't matter. However, I switched the phone back on at midnight. The screen was illuminated with a single message. Unknown figure. Cheers to your birthday. I'm still here? I gazed at it. It was most likely a nasty joke or prank from a bored companion who had figured out the ideal technique to twist the knife. I was on the verge of deleting it when I noticed the contact name, Grandfather. They told me that Grandpa had been deceased for around 3 years. Cold perspiration sprang on my forehead as my heart raced. I verified that the area code for the number matched the place where he had previously resided, but it didn't make sense. He had left buried. I had seen the pictures from the little funeral and the obituary. Just Sarah, Mom, and Dad. I was not invited. Too preoccupied with job. As I typed, my fingers began to shake. Who is this? There were 3 dots. Then there was another message, unknown figure. They misled you, your inheritance, your home. They accepted it. I need your assistance. I had trouble falling asleep. In the dark, I sat, my phone's frigid light. The room's sole source of illumination. The message from Grandpa looked back at me. A wound that glows, unknown figure. They misled you, your home, your gift. They accepted it. I need your assistance, even though I didn't want to accept it. I couldn't help but feel a chill go up my spine. I tracked down the number. A nursing facility made the call. 2 towns away. Although the trip took less than an hour, it seemed to take forever. The structure was worn out and drab. It's the type of location where time passes. A nurse looked up as I entered. When she noticed my face, her grin faded. I'm here to observe. He looks like my granddad to me. My voice faltered, her face softened. Do you mean Hargrove, Mr. 214th room? When I arrived to the door, I nearly fled. My labored breathing ceased. What if something went wrong? What if I spotted a stranger as I entered? However, I forced it open. By the window stood an elderly guy with silver hair. His weary face was painted with brilliant lights and sunlight. His gaze changed, and he gave me a faint, shaky smile as they met. I anticipated your arrival. There was a glimmer of vitality in his voice, but it was like parched leaves, Grandfather. He gave a nod. I wanted to give him a hug, but I was immobile. My legs felt like stone. I whispered that you should be killed. They wanted you to believe that. He pointed to the bed next to him, and I fell down on it. Boy, they took it all. The money, the mansion. They said that I refused to sign it for them, which is why I died. Thus, they falsified it. I was unable to hear my own thoughts since my heart was beating so loudly. However, they had pictures from a funeral. Everything is phony. A coffin that was empty was buried. Told you it was just for family. Did they not? Indeed, the inheritance that should have been free made me feel ill. You, however they required the funds. They always do. He grabbed for mine, his hand shaking. They imprisoned me here when I attempted to resist them. Said that I was going crazy. I pleaded with the nurse, but they took my phone. I was able to utilize hers. It only required that. The numbness changed to something else after that one hint of treachery. Something is on fire. I got to my feet. I will not allow this to go unpunished. Grandpa's hold became more firm, unexpectedly powerful. Take caution to keep what they have stolen. They will stop at nothing. Anything. The winter air was cutting my face as I left the nursing home, but I didn't feel anything. I had my phone in my hand and it was dialing. After 2 rings, Dad answered the phone. "Well, you've finally realized that you have relatives," he spoke in a sarcastic tone. "I went to see Grandpa just now. Quiet, the type of glass cracking kind, Dad. I know everything. I am aware of what you did. You've never shown gratitude. Keep it." My voice sounded frigid to me. I had never heard of this before. "You informed me of his death. You took his money and his house. You left him to fester in a nursing facility after pretending he had died." "Watch what you say," he said. "You have no knowledge. I am enough knowledgeable. I had the pictures and the words. I'm heading to the police station." The curse was hushed. Then there was another voice. "Mom, don't do this, darling. Please, you're not understanding. For the family, we took this action. The household I went out, or for you, because your conception of family is a falsehood." I ended the call. They immediately phoned me back, but I didn't answer. I immediately went home and started to dig text messages, bank data, and pictures. I was aware of the whereabouts of my parents' old files. They believed that I had never touched them. However, I discovered more than simply proof of the house. I discovered something worse: moves. Over the previous 3 years, thousands of dollars were embezzled from Grandpa's account into accounts using the identities of my sister and mother. I owned the money. I owned the house. They stole everything, and Grandpa trusted them. It buzzed on my phone. A Facebook post, a notice. Families are based on forgiveness and trust. Mom, there are those who simply cannot let go of their resentment. At Linda, there was a flood of remarks from aunts, uncles, and even relatives. "Sweetheart, don't worry. Some children just become self-centered." "Uncle Mike, being unappreciative is an understatement." Then Sarah. "He has always been the mischievous kid, making drama all the time." The tale was being fabricated by them. I was being portrayed as the bad guy. Once more, my phone buzzed. Sarah texted Sarah. "Adult up. Grandpa is elderly. Half of what he says he can't even recall. Do you want the house? All right, you're not stealing from me, though. All you can think about is yourself. I didn't toss my phone, even though I wanted to. Rather, I began capturing screenshots, copying every document I came across, and storing everything. I organized them into a tidy folder on my laptop, gave it the name Truth, and made 3 backup copies. They believed they could steer the story. As usual, they assumed that I would give in. However, they were unaware that I had finished playing the obedient son. There was silence in the cafe. Around me, the faint hum of voices serves as a background noise. I picked a table distant from the windows in the corner. It was flawless. The entryway is clearly visible, not a place to hide. I had my laptop open as I sat. A folder named Truth Inside shone on the screen of the USB device that was plugged in. Everything. The last nail in their coffin was the faked signatures, the bank transfers, the screenshots, and the video of Grandpa at the assisted living facility. My phone exploded. The message from Mom. "Here we are. Don't cause a scene." "Please," I didn't respond. Soon enough, they would come to regret those comments. I spotted them as the door opened. Dad stiff and angry. Mom is worried and pale. Sarah grinning, but with that poisonous, phony sweetness. They approached and sat across from me. Without saying anything, I gave them a glance and remained silent. Mom shattered the quiet. "Could we simply have a conversation about this, honey? We are related. Family." I left the term lingering. As you informed me, Grandpa had passed away. Like you imprisoned him in a nursing home after stealing his house. Dad's expression contorted. You dare not. I clicked a file on my laptop while leaning back.